Hello, my elegant warriors. I am so excited to have this conversation with you. It's one that I think is so important. Today, we are going to be talking about how to say no. And specifically, we're going to be diving into the difference between saying no and setting a boundary. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, I've gotten so much feedback about my conversation with my best friend Courtney on the podcast. That podcast was maybe 2 or 3 podcasts ago. And if you are watching on YouTube, you see that I have this necklace on. It is Courtney also makes jewelry, and every once in a while she does a jewelry drop. And this is a piece that she actually gave me for my birthday. And you want to check her out, Gracie Glass. If you want to buy some jewelry for yourself for Mother's Day presents, that drop is about to happen. So I know a lot of people have commented on this necklace before. You've commented on my podcast with Courtney. I just wanted to let you know that she also does, on occasion, make jewelry. I also wanted to let you know that this topic that we're talking about today, saying no versus setting boundaries, is a really important one. And it is a big part of the course that I'm doing in May on mastering difficult conversations. This course is going to change your lives because it's going to give you the ability to say no, to set boundaries, to handle conflict, to address implicit bias, to negotiate, and to do it all with self assurance. So, if that is something that you're interested in, if conflict and arguments make you uncomfortable, these are life skills that no one really taught us. And I learned them through experience as a mediator, as an attorney. For all of those years, I mediated cases and I negotiated cases, and also in my own life. And now I'm sharing everything that I've learned. I went to Drexel and got my mediation certificate. I went to Pepperdine and got my mediation certificate. I learned all this stuff in law school at Villanova, and then 20 years, 20 something years in the courtroom, actually putting this stuff to work. And I'm sharing everything I learned in all of that education with the people who attend this course. It's going to be 6 weeks long. It is going to include videos, a private podcast, lots of worksheets, and weekly live coaching slash answering your questions. So if that's interesting to you, the link for the wait list is in the show notes. And once I have put it live, you will have the opportunity to sign up. It will be open to those on the wait list first. So get on that wait list if this is something you struggle with. You will leave this 6 weeks very assured of your ability to negotiate, say no, set boundaries, handle conflict, handle implicit bias. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about it. And today's episode is just a taste. So let's talk about saying no. One of the things that you want to know is that everything that you want in life is built on a foundation of saying no to other things. So let's take me for an example. Hold on, I'm going to look. Sorry, guys. I was text about being on TV. Let's take me for example. I, for 25 years, was a trial attorney, and I wanted new things. I wanted a new career. I wanted a new beginning. I wanted to take all the books I read and all the work I'd done and all the experience I have had in my psychology degree and use it to teach people how to advocate, how to ask for what they want in a way that is effective and allows them to get it. In order to do that, to do all of the new things, keynote speaking, writing books, making courses like the course that I've created, to do all of those things, I had to say no to my identity as a lawyer. I had to say no to my career in the law. I had to say no to my partners in the law firm that I wasn't going to stay there anymore. I had to say no to all of the clients who wanted me to continue to try their cases. And that was such a hard no. But without it, I could not have said yes to this new, fulfilling, exciting, lovely career, speaking and teaching people like you how to get what they want and to say no to what they don't want. Years ago, I had to say no to overfeeding my body and to eating my feelings so that I could say yes to better health. I oftentimes say no to drinking alcohol so that I can say yes to my morning routine, which I love so much. My time to talk to God and to read spiritual and inspirational books and to journal and to do some of my creative work and to walk my dog and all of the meditate, of course. But I have to say no to going out late at night sometimes or to drinking at night sometimes. And sometimes, let's be clear, I say no to my morning routine so that I can go out and have fun the night before. but I have to say no to say yes. And then relationships. I have had to say no to a lot of relationships that were hurting me in order to say yes to the relationships that have healed me. And that includes the relationship with myself. If you can't say no to what you don't want, you'll never even get the opportunity to say yes to what you do want. Now, I've talked on this podcast before, and if you're in my world, whether in my courses or my membership or with my coaching, you know that advocating, one of the definitions is knowing what you want, asking for it out loud and with delight, and mastering the art of the ask. Saying no is knowing what you don't want, saying no with delight, and mastering the art of the no. So for the longest time, I was terrible at saying no. Terrible. I did not say no to my partners. I did not say no to those bad relationships. I did not say no to my partners in those relationships. And saying no probably would have made those relationships better. I did not advocate for myself for a very, very long time. That meant that I didn't ask for what I want, and I didn't say no to what I didn't want. Uh, why not? Why don't we say no? Well, there's a lot of reasons. We think it sounds bad. We think it's not helpful. We want to be helpful. Many of us want to be good, and I'm putting that in quotes. We want to be good, and we don't think that saying no is good, that it's the definition of the type of spouse, partner, employee, employer, friend that we should be. So we don't say no. And also, a big part of saying no is that we don't define it. If you don't know what you are doing, it is hard to do it well. Repeat that. If you don't know what you're doing, it's hard to do that thing well. And if you don't know that you're saying no, it's tough to do it well. People think that they want to be setting more boundaries. We are hearing that all the time. I need to get better at setting boundaries. I need to set better boundaries. I know about my boundaries. You have crossed a boundary. And I'll talk in a minute about some of my clients who came to me and said, I need to learn to set better boundaries. The truth is, most of us don't need to learn to set better boundaries. We need to learn to say no, period. It's important to know the difference. No has far more power than a boundary has, far more power. No is stronger. If you set a boundary, if you give it, if you cross this line, then I will X, Y, and Z, you are putting the power in their hands. You are kicking the can down the lane. If you do this, then be careful because I might say no, but you are giving them the power. You want to be in your power. And you do that by saying no. Simple, straightforward. No. Saying no looks like this. No, you can't come over without calling me first. No. Setting a boundary is if you come over without calling me first, I won't let you in. That just means that you're kicking the ball down the road. When they come over without calling you first, then you will have to follow through in the consequence. It gets so much harder to say no then because they're standing at your door, which is oftentimes what people expect. That's why the boundary is better for them and worse for you. It puts off what you ultimately have to do. Another example, saying no is you can't speak to me that way. No. The boundary is if you speak to me that way, I will report you to HR. That is kicking the ball down the lane. When they speak to you that way, and chances are they will, then you have to follow through with the consequence and actually report them to HR. But when you say no in your power, they're much less likely to speak to you that way. You need to stand in your power and say your no. Another one for parents. Saying no is you can't stay out past midnight. The boundary would be if you come home after midnight, you'll be grounded. That just means that when the child comes home after midnight, now you haven't said no, so it seems a little bit less severe, then you have to follow through with the no and follow through with the consequences. Saying no is actually so much simpler because you just say no. Boundaries lead to another action. They lead to something further in the future. The consequence that you then have to follow through with if the person does the thing that you've asked them not to do. You are giving your power away. And then you have to try to wrestle it back when you follow through with the consequence. I polled people on my LinkedIn and my Instagram. My Instagram is Ann Elegant Warrior if you want to follow me over there. But I polled people and asked them, are you more comfortable with saying no or setting boundaries? Across the board, the answer was high percentage. They were more comfortable with setting boundaries. Of course, it's easier because you're really giving the other person your power. And so that is a whole lot easier. Feels a whole lot nicer. It feels a whole lot more helpful. It feels a whole lot more good. But the truth is that you are not serving yourself and you are not serving them either. We are afraid to say no to others. So instead, we say no to ourselves. We are afraid to hurt others. So instead, we want to hurt ourselves. We want to be helpful to others. So we don't help ourselves. And we are afraid that if we say no, we won't get what we want from others. So we don't give what we want to ourselves. Saying no is where your power is. It is setting a boundary with yourself. If they speak to me that way, I'll say no. If they want to come over without calling, I'll say no. It's about you setting that boundary. The if then is in your head, not with the other person. When you say a boundary, it's external. If you do that thing, I'll follow through with this consequence. It's about them. When you say no well, you don't have to worry so much about boundaries. With boundaries, the hard part is following through on the consequence. Setting the boundary is pretty easy, but there has to be a final no. Sooner or later, you can't kick the can down the lane any longer. Sooner or later, you have to say no. So why not get comfortable with doing it now? Advocating is knowing what you want, asking for it out loud and with delight, and mastering the art of the ask. Saying no is knowing what you don't want, saying no with delight, and mastering the art of the no. And the delight comes from knowing that you are saying yes to yourself, that you are helping yourself, and that you are giving yourself the things that you need. You have to be able to say no in order to be able to advocate. You have to say no to what you don't want in order to get what you do want. I'll tell you about two clients that I served that struggled with this. The first client was a corporate leader in healthcare. And she came to me for a number of reasons. She wanted to advocate for a number of things. But one of the things she said is, I need to get better at setting boundaries. And what happened was the people who she led, not her bosses, but the people who she was leading, she was the boss too, would consistently put themselves into her calendar for meetings or ask her for meetings. And she thought she needed to set better boundaries with them with the meetings. But what she really needed to do was say, no, I'm not meeting with you at that time or those days. So for example, we worked on the no. No, I don't take meetings on Wednesdays or Mondays or Wednesdays. Those are the days that she decided. The boundary would have been internal. For her, the boundary was internal. If they ask for meetings on Mondays or Wednesdays, I'll say no. That's an internal boundary. But to the outer world, she just said no, no meetings on Mondays or Wednesdays. Her calendar wasn't open for Mondays or Wednesdays. A boundary with them would have been something like, if you schedule a meeting for Monday and Wednesday, I won't show up. No, that's just a waste of time. Just say no to scheduling the meeting on Monday or Wednesday. And then you have not kicked the can down the lane and everything's handled. There's no problem in the future. And so that's what she did. She said, I'm no longer taking meetings on Mondays or Wednesdays. She closed her calendar to the meetings and she gained so much time. And ultimately, and this allowed her to say no with delight in the future, ultimately, they were better because when she did have her meetings, she was more present, she was more ready, she was more excited, she was more enthusiastic, she was more joyful. And on Mondays and Wednesdays, she could do the deep work she had to do to be better prepared for those meetings and for the meetings with her bosses and for the meetings with their clients. It served everyone for her to say that no. And then they could say yes to better clients, better relationships with clients, better serving their clients, a better boss, all of the good things, all because she learned how to say no. Another example from working with her was people would often ask for extensions on things that they had told her that they would get her. And she started to say, no, no, I won't give you an extension on that thing. No, you can't have more time. I need it when we said it was due. Instead of, if you give it to me late, I will be mad. Like there's no boundary there. Just saying no, you can't have it late, got her, the people she led, to be more on time, to be more prepared, to have these deadlines set as actual deadlines as opposed to these fluffy little deadlines that they continue to push the boundary on. She became so much more powerful when she learned to say no. And she realized that it was rare that she had to set boundaries because she was saying no. She also realized that all the boundaries that she had been setting in the past were wasting time because they were so circular and people would step over the boundaries and then she had to instill a consequence and it would continue to circle and circle and circle that way. The no was enough. Very few people violated her no's. People couldn't get in on Mondays and Wednesdays, and very few people were late with their deadlines because she had said no. She knew what she didn't want. And over time, with practice, she started to recognize all of the yeses that came not just to her, but to the people that she led. So she was able to say no with delight. You have to learn to say no. The second client was an entrepreneur. And this particular client I could relate to because I had been through something similar. She was taking work for a lesser price than what she had originally quoted. So this was definitely a saying no problem. It wasn't a boundary problem. It wasn't, if you try to pay me less, I won't do the work. It was when they said, we'll pay you X number of dollars, she didn't say no. She said yes. And she had to have an internal boundary that said, if they offer me less, I'll say no. Simple. She ended up with time practicing this, saying no when people offered her less than what her work was worth, what she had already determined to be the value of her work. And over time, she started to master the no, to be able to say it with delight, to be able to say to her, in mastering the no meant saying to her clients, I have a full calendar. I don't have the bandwidth. And if I did it for less than my value, then you would get less than my value and neither of us would be served. And this led to her getting more work at her full fee, mainly because of the change in her self-worth, which changed her energy, which is something that we talk about a lot in my work. And we will talk about a lot in that course on mastering difficult conversations. What you believe impacts your energy, and your energy impacts the way that people respond to you. You have got to learn to say no. Without saying no to what you don't want, you will never learn to ask for what you do not want. And when you learn to say no with delight and master the art of the no, you will start collecting your wins like you would not believe. I've seen it time and time again with myself. I've seen it time and time again with the clients that I serve. And I see it time and time again with the people that I teach. And I want to see it with you. If you want to join us for this work, the Mastering Difficult Conversations waitlist link is in my bio. But in the meantime, practice. Recognize the difference in your life between setting a boundary and saying a no. And then try saying no rather than setting a boundary. See how it feels. See how you feel more powerful. See how people respond to you, and start stepping into it, start delighting in it, start mastering it, and you are off to the races. I hope that this is helpful for you. It is an important distinction that we don't often make. I will be back next week with a guest. But in the meantime, the ability to sign up with us is in the waitlist in the show notes. I hope that you have a great weekend. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and I hope that you continue to take good care.